Hey guys, my name is Justin Case and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do an update on the 8ight-X. We're going to put some electronics in it. Alright guys, as you can see, we're still missing servos, still missing an engine and everything. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and put a steering servo in, and then we're going to put a throttle servo in. So first things first guys, we're going to move the top off this battery tray where the servo sits, and we're going to pull it out of the buggy. So here's the top off the battery tray. You got your battery tray here. Your battery's going to go here. Your servo's going to go here. So I've already taken the screws out of the bottom. But on the bottom of the chassis, so I'll go ahead and remove that. So on the bottom of the chassis right here, there are 4 screw holes that you can see. These 2 and these 2 right here. These are what holds the battery tray and the servo in. I took that out of the car. So we're going to work with the tray here. And right here's where your servo goes. So on this build, we're going to be using the Reedy, the RT1508. It's a budget-friendly servo. It's a good servo for the price. It's got plenty of torque, and it's okay on its speed. So what you're going to do is we're going to put this servo in here and put it in the case. Okay, so I'm gonna put screws in here to hold the servo in place. We'll have the wire running out. Okay, so here you see I've already put the screws in. So it turns out I only had 3 that were just alike. These 3 with the bushings underneath them, 1, 2, and 3. But this 4th one, I didn't have a 4th, so I found something that looked kind of close to what's going on here. So now that I've got that done, we're going to get ready to put this back in the buggy. Grab the buggy, we'll get it back in front of us here so we can see what's going on. Okay, so we got the buggy back in front of us. So it's actually going to go it's going to go back in its spot right here. The wire's going to be fun because we're going to have to route this wire right here to go under here. There's the little cover that goes right down here, and then the wire will go in here, which is the receiver box. I'll go ahead and pull the lid off of it so it's out of the way. Actually, I'll leave the wire loose until I get everything screwed down. So I'm gonna flip this over here. So we're gonna put these 4 screws in these holes here that hold the radio tray and the servo. Go ahead and get them started by hand. And then I'm going to use my cordless driver just to run them down in. And hope we don't have screws that are too long in the top. That way these screws will go all the way in. Because the screws that we did put in are a decent length screw. Okay. We're not going to run them in tight. We're just going to run them down to about there. That's just shy. So it's not tight yet.
Alright, so I'll come back behind them and I'll actually
snug them down with they're 2mm, so I'm going to snug them down with 2mm hex tool. So I'll just go through and check them all. For those of you that don't know, I'm using MIP drivers. I've found they work very well, and you don't take a chance in really screwing up the screws or stripping the screws. Okay, so now I've got that servo sitting in there. Now, next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put the servo here that operates the throttle and the brake. So to do that, what you've actually got to do is you need to take off this. You need to take off this whole piece here, which is what holds the diff in. So let me break those loose by hand, and then I will pull them out with Then I will pull them out with my driver so it's a little bit faster. Because they are snug, they're going in tight. Turn it up some so I can actually get them loose. Oh. Sorry guys, that's wrong screw. It's this bottom one down here. Four. So that's the 4 screws. That holds the diff and the servo tray in right here. As you can see, you've got your brakes here on both sides of where the diff goes. The diff is here. It's just as easy just pulling it out now that we pulled those 4 screws off. But we're going to set the car back out of the way and we're going to work on putting a servo in here. Okay, so for this one right here, we're going to be using the servos, the SC1258 TG servo. Let it focus, which it's probably not going to. Sorry guys, using my phone. But yeah, SC1258 TG servo. Now, it is a used servo. Now let me show you. It's got a lot of use on it. But it is still a good servo. It's a good throttle servo for what I'm doing since we're doing a budget build. Now this servo right here can be a pretty good pain to get into this, especially if you've already got this control arm here. So you kind of have to fight past it. You know, just have to push it. But it has super long leads on this servo. I will probably shorten it down because it'll probably spend the rest of its life in this nitro buggy here. But we'll get this, try to get it up out of the way. And you see, since it's carbon fiber, there's no flex in it. And this is kind of in the way, so you can't go down straight. But if you get it kind of up close, and you have to kind of just force it in, and it popped in and it's going to go down. So this is actually going to be visible to everybody outside. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm probably going to take a permanent marker or something, just paint it black. That way it just makes it look better. On this one I am going to be using spacers because I'm using these little metal bushings here. That way the servo's just tight, you know, within its space. But I'm going to be using these spacers here, so I'm going to go ahead and get these spacers put in. And then, so I'll show you actually. So the servo goes in the tray. The spacer will actually go under the servo. The bushing will go in through the top, down into the spacer there. And then you'll have these on the bottom. These are what the screws are actually going to go down into, and they're going to go like this on each side. And you'll run your screws down in and tighten it. And tighten it down, that way it holds the servo still. Okay, so now that we have the servo installed, we're going to install this diff holder back into the car, and then we will start looking at how we're going to run our wires. So let's set this out of the way. Let's get the car back over here. So we got the car sitting right back here, and you can see this tray goes right here on top of the diff here. So we'll set this in here like this, just keeping the wire out of the way. We will line the brakes back up and set the diff back down like that. Or diff cover, I'm sorry. We'll set the diff cover back down just like that. And we are going to run the screws back down in there almost all the way. And then we'll finish them off with the driver. Or with the hand tool, sorry. You hear how tight it is in that plastic. Sounds like putting a nail in wood. But now we did that, now we'll come back with this and we'll just We'll snug them down. We don't plan on taking it back out until we have to do some diff service work. Just snug. You don't want to get them too tight. You don't want to end up trying to stripping plastic. Okay, so now we've got our 2 servos in here. So after we get our receiver in the car, then we will put power to it and center the servos. That way we can make sure that we get everything centered and ready as far as the throttle and the steering go. Okay, so now we have our wires ran. On this Losi 8, it comes with, or I'm sorry, on the 8ight-X, it's got a split radio box, which is interesting compared to the old ones. The old ones have one large radio box. But anyways, you got this servo. You got the wires coming out of it. They're going down. They're coming under this, as well as the steering servo. The wires coming out of the back, and it's going under this piece of plastic that they offer. That way your wires can come into your receiver box. Now, look how much wire we have left for the 8ight-X servo. Now, I may shorten it. I may not. I may leave it the way it is. It looks like our wire, as far as our steering servo, is perfect, real short. But they give us a quite large receiver box that we can wad a little bit of wire up into if we have to. But here next, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find one of my on-off switches, and we're gonna put the on-off switch in here. I'm not doing an electric switch or an expert switch. I'm just gonna do an old school, not rocker, but slide switch here. So we'll get to that. Give me just a sec. So what I ended up doing is taking the screws out of the bottom of the chassis. You can see on the bottom of the chassis right here, I'll get it flipped over. There are actually 3 screw holes, but there's just 2 screws that hold the radio tray in, or the receiver box in. So I took those 2 screws out. I'm gonna pull the receiver box. So when you get your switch in here, it turns out there's a lot less room. It turns out there's a lot less room than expected. Now, we can still work with what we got. We'll still have, I believe we'll still have enough room. Okay, so we're gonna be using this switch right here. It's a 3-lead switch. So it's got a charge cable, it's got a battery power in, and then it's got power out to your receiver. That way you can power your servos. Okay, so the way I'm installing this switch is it sits in the car. It sits in a car like this, and I'm installing it to where if you push it inwards, like towards the car, it's on, outwards towards the outside, it's off. You don't take a big chance in it getting pulled outwards during a race. If somebody was to hit you in the body and knock it inwards, then it could turn your car off, and well, so we want it where you push it in, it turns the car on. Okay, so I took that out, I put a power switch in, and I've got the receiver sitting down in here. There's gonna be a lot of wire stuffed into a small space here, so we see if we can make it work. But with this in here, I'm not gonna have the charge lead coming out because I'm gonna probably be running a LiPo battery, so I'll be charging probably through the balance port. We'll go ahead and see if we can. Ooh, that hole's gonna be too small. All right, now that we've got the receiver and everything in here, there'll be a lot of freaking wires hanging out, but we're gonna go ahead and put this back on the car. That way we can get the wires on the car routed up into it and get everything correct the way we need it to be. So we got the car right here. We're gonna get this about where it's supposed to be sitting. It's gonna sit in like that right there. Make sure nothing's in the way. Okay, now we got that sitting like that. We'll flip it up and put the screws in the bottom side to hold the tray in. Alright, so now we've got this mounted back in the car. Now we're going to work on trying to play with some wiring. It really bothers me when my wiring is not pretty and clean, but you know, it's just part of it. And it looks like we're going to be able to get this to look halfway decent and be pretty clean wiring. So we're going to work on worming this wiring in down here. It's actually not as easy as I was thinking it was going to be. Let's run this one in first. I may have to take it back loose and raise it up and run the wires in and then mount it back down. Let's see if I can pull this wire back some so I can see what I'm doing. Thought I made plenty of room. I may not have. Yeah, looks like I'm probably going to have to pull that back loose so that I can run the wires in through the hole, because you just can't get to the hole the way it is. Alright, now that I got this loose, now it looks like we can work on trying to feed the wires through here. Which there's really not a lot of room, so it is going to be kind of a tight squeeze to get everything in here. What we're going to do is we're going to leave the battery wire right here somewhere. That way we can unplug it and plug it back up if we need to just run it right there. Let's take this, make sure it's flat all the way. Alright, so now we push those wires up through the bottom of the tray. Now we've got the wires hanging out in here, so now we can mount it back again to, now we can probably mount it, hopefully for the last time, get it mounted down and sitting in there. Alright, so now that we have the servos in the car, now we're going to center up the servos and get the servo horns put on. That way we can get one step closer to having it ready to run. Oh, sorry. So for this, I'm just going to use this old hump pack I got. It's probably about 10 years old, but it still works. It'll hold enough charge. It'll hold enough charge to do this. So let me hook this up real fast. Okay. That turns. Throttle one moves. So we want it to be as square as possible. So how far off are we going to be? That is pretty dadgum close. So here we will run a 2mm screw down there, because I'm going to call that good right off the bat. So they are digital servos, so they do like to make a little bit of noise. I don't really know if I like that servo horn. I think I'm going to get an aluminum one, because it looks like, well, there's not so much movement now that it's actually tightening down. Super long screw. So let's see. Left, right, nope. So I'm going to have to reverse the steering, which is no big deal. Now we'll work on the throttle servo. See how close to centered it is. We want... Ooh, that's not very close. So let me move the car over a little bit where you can see what I'm talking about. So that arm, I'll show you like this. Okay, so you see how the arm is crooked here? I want the arm straight sideways. So we may have to do some playing to get it straight sideways, but we got to make sure we're not setting the brakes. Pull just a little bit. I may have to lift this off and maybe go one tooth, because the teeth on the servo are a lot finer. Let's see what it looks like now. That's a lot closer. Are we setting the brakes? No brakes yet. See if we can move it just another little bit more. We are starting to set the brakes, but I can relieve the brake pressure. I can adjust the brakes. I just want it squared as possible. That's probably as close as we're gonna get right now. Throttle, brake. Okay, so yeah, I may have to do some tinkering and adjusting to get it straight, but I'm gonna put a screw in the top of this, and well, guys, that'll be it for today's video. Smash that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that bell. That way it'll alert you whenever I have another video posted. Should be another video coming up within the next couple of days with some well-needed parts for this car. That way we can get it just a little bit further. Thanks. Have a good evening.